What is going on, everybody? Star Wars Jedi Survivor will be released on 28th of April. So before that, I replayed and prepared this recap of the previous game, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. In this video, we will go through the story and gameplay. I will talk about what I think was good, what I think was bad, and what we can hope to be fixed in the new game. For those of you who just want a quick overview of the game, feel free to scroll to the final thoughts section at the end of the video. But if you are interested in the story and or gameplay analysis, welcome to my journey through Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This was a pleasure to Star Wars fans' eyes. Junky Yard looks amazing. However, before we get into the game itself, I wanted to quickly cover some choices you have to make in the menu. Difficulty. Game gives the player 4 choices: Story, Jedi Knight, Jedi Master, and Jedi Grandmaster. My both playthroughs I played on Grandmaster difficulty, with falling back to Master at one certain point that I will cover later. This game is not overly hard, and you have the ability to switch difficulty at any time, and it doesn't impact any achievements, so you can try any difficulty you like. My biggest problem with difficulty settings is that it impacts the parry window. The higher the difficulty is, the smaller the window. I personally think it is not a great decision. It is a good when difficulty is not just a scaling and affects strategic decisions you make by changing other parameters. But I don't think the parry window is the one of those parameters you want to change. You see, the parry exists on the level of reflexes we develop to become better. And then apply those reflexes in combat. If a player decides he wants a bigger challenge and bumps the difficulty level, he may need to be more clean in execution and adapt some new strategies. But changing parry window will make lots of reference points player brain mapped useless, forcing player to relearn instead of adapt. It is especially painful when the game mechanics are focused on parrying. Another choice I had to make is if I want to start a new game or New Game Plus from my first save. And yeah, there is no effort whatsoever in New Game Plus. It carries over only cosmetics you found. Honestly, it's a joke in my opinion, not sure why bother adding it at all. Anyways, to the game. We play as Cal Kestis, former Jedi Padawan whose master was murdered in front of him during Order 66. And now trying to keep a low profile to avoid judgment by the Empire. No one knows about his nature, even his buddy Prauf, with whom he works on Junky Yard disassembling ships. He and Prauf were tasked with a risky job that went sideways, and Cal had to use his force to save Prauf from death. Unfortunately not for too long, because one of the Watcher droids spotted Cal using force and reported it to the Empire. The Empire immediately arrived with 2 Inquisitors, 2nd and 9th Sisters. Inquisitors are the Force-sensitive individuals trained by Darth Vader himself in order to hunt down surviving Jedi. As workers are interrogated, Prauf steps up, calling out the Empire on some bullshit, and that is how it ends.
I've been working on this heap a long time. Way before the war. We refit and rebuilt ships. Best in the galaxy. Then came the Empire. And engineers became scrappers. The workers It just started getting worked.
Prof.
We all know the truth. We're just too afraid to say it. To the Empire, we're all just expendable.
Wolves. They won't.
No! Just
And look at this. A lightsaber.
In this section, game introduces us to the most basic traversal mechanics, which will be expanded as the story progresses. First thing I wanted to notice, Cal's running animation. It looks terrible, like for real. This is the 2019 game, by the way. Half a year after Sekiro, entire year after God of War 2018. How? I am so glad that it looks fixed in the sequel. Camera and running directions feel a bit funky, like it is not really precise when you don't have a lock on target. I usually play with lock on, but this game is really doing weird shit if you don't have one. If you are not locked on the target, it can be right in front of you, you still may miss. So yeah, my advice, use lock on always, even in large group of enemies. We end up on the train, the very fast-paced, pretty cool section where the player is introduced to combat mechanics. It is obvious as night and day that the developer was going for Sekiro experience, with fast-paced combat where parrying and breaking enemy posture are core elements of the fight. I will talk about what they did capture and what they didn't later in the video, but I want to question the decision in the first place. This type of combat makes a lot of sense during saber duels or in fights with elite enemies, like Royal Guards or Purge Troopers, who were specifically equipped with weapons that can stop lightsabers and who were trained to at least give Jedi some run on the money. However, it just doesn't make any sense when some giant toad tries to bite you or a space goat charges you and you parry it with your lightsaber. Like, what the fuck? This doesn't make any sense. What are those goats' horns made of? Beskar? Are all wildlife enemies' claws, jaws, whatever made of it? Anyway, at this stage it is not too bad because the player is introduced to two types of basic enemies. Regular stormtroopers with blasters, which by the way you can deflect back into them if you hit the parry window, and it is immensely satisfying. They can't block your attack and die from a single hit. And you have scout troopers with this electric mace. What was it a thing? Regardless, the game needed basic melee enemies, so I am okay with it. Same as stormtroopers, scouts die from single hit, but are able to block your attacks. You can break their posture either with 3 attacks into block or with 1 perfect parry. So, not very complex, but it is a decent start. Cal goes through the train in this action-packed sequence in order to escape, slicing enemies on the way. From the Force abilities, Cal at this stage only can slow one enemy, allowing him to land guaranteed hit. As the train got wrecked, Cal ended up facing Second Sister. This is a training fight which is in the best traditions of Souls games. Developers trying to copy here, player has to lose. But when it is almost over, help arrives on the ship called Mantis, which will become our home for this adventure. There are 2 crew members, Seer, ex-Jedi who intercepted Empire's transmission and saved Cal so later he can fix up some of her mistakes, and Captain Grease, whose gambling addiction will cost us dearly later. What a team! Cere brings Cal to Bogano, the planet concealed from the Empire where her ex-master Cordova hid a holocron with the list of Force-sensitive children, after he foreseen the Jedi Order end. In search of the holocron, Cal encountered BD-1, droid that used to belong to Cordova, and will spit out small portions of information about how to access it as we repeat Cordova's journey, because the old fart decided it somehow will protect the holocron from the users of the dark side? Whatever, I guess. We need something that will keep the journey running. After reaching the place where the holocron is stored, Cals have been told that we need some magic MacGuffin to get it, and to reach it we need to visit 3 tombs, so he embarks on the journey to find those. In this section, the player is introduced to meditation points, which are essentially bonfires. You can use it to rest to restore health and force, you can level up, and it is the place where you revive after death. Unlike in Souls games, if you rest or if you die, all enemies respawn. And if you die, you lose all the experience you had, skill points remains intact, and to retrieve it, you have to go to the enemy who killed you and hit it at least once. Look, I love some of the Souls games. I love Dark Souls 3, I love Elden Ring, I absolutely adore Sekiro. But I do not understand why everyone else is trying to mindlessly copy some of the Souls games' mechanics. The death and rebirth cycle in the original From Software games are part of the story. When you die in the game, it is not just a setback in player's time. It is an actual death and rebirth of your character in the world of the game. I am not an expert, but I am pretty sure this is not how Star Wars works. Why couldn't we just get regular checkpoints? Anyways, meditation points are distributed quite generously, and the system of smart shortcuts helps a lot. So it is more of a weird choice rather than inconvenience. As Cal was trying to get to the holocron, he unlocked a new traversal ability, Wall Run. I won't stop on other traversal abilities, but this is the first one, and I truly believe developers did something cool here, so I have to cover it. You see, Cal is in the age when Anakin Skywalker was jumping 3 meters high, tossing droids with force around like they were made of cardboard, and slicing the entire villages of sand people with lightsaber. And not just men, but women and children too. Yes, Cal's training was abruptly stopped and Anakin is one of the most powerful Force users in the universe, but the gap is still way too big. This is explained through trauma Cal took when his master was killed in front of him, and all the abilities he would get through the game are not coming from nowhere. He gets those abilities through visions of his past training with Jar Tapal, his master. Embarking on this journey makes him recover all he knew before, making him whole again, getting stronger. And the great part, because it is the game, we always have an obstacle that will showcase new abilities, emphasizing character progress. This is why storytelling in video games are so much different than any other media, and if done properly is so much more powerful. Before getting to the next destination, you will have the ability to explore some of Bogano, and I wanted to use it as an opportunity to talk about loot in this game. There are plenty of cosmetics, poncho, lightsaber, etc. There are your big force echoes, collect 3 and increase your maximum life or force, quite a standard stuff, and upgrade that increases the number of emergency steams you can have. Those are your heals replenished at rest. The last one is by far the most important. In my first playthrough, I was exploring everything to get those. But of course, they're just a small fraction of the loot, and every time, instead of extra steam I found a new poncho, I was kinda disappointed. Because of all the cosmetics, the only one I really cared about was lightsaber color. But if this is something you are into, you will have much more pleasant time than I did. Next lead we have is Zeffo, We got to their home planet to find one of the tombs, but unfortunately for us, the Empire is already there, digging some Jedi artifacts for some secret Palpatine project. As we get to the tomb, the game introduces the player to some new enemy types. The ones worth noting are stormtroopers with rocket launchers. They don't shoot often, but you can deflect rockets, and they deal damage in the area, so you need to roll out of their way. Well, makes sense. And then we have the Space Ram. This dude has an unblockable charge, solid amount of HP. You need like 5-6 hits to kill him. Player is expected to parry this guy because apparently his horns were made of Beskar, but at the same time the parryable attacks look like shaking head from side to side with no good reference points. As most creature type enemies in this game, this guy's attacks telegraphed extremely poorly. Seriously, I would rather fight half a dozen stormtroopers than one of these dudes. This is not enjoyable whatsoever. We get through the Empire to the tomb and solving a couple of puzzles with big balls. We finally get access to the next clue that leads us to Cordova's old furry friend Tarful. If you don't remember, Tarful is a Wookiee chieftain who was featured in episode 3 when he and Chewbacca helped Yoda to escape Order 66. So, our next destination is Kashyyyk. As Cal learned it, he also remembered how to use Force Push. Force Push is a massive game changer. Now Cal can push dudes, he can push them over the cliff, even some elite dudes. Later he will be able to push groups of dudes in one go. You even will be able to throw smaller dudes into the other dudes. This is a very cool upgrade. I underused it in my first playthrough and it was a big mistake. If used properly, Cal feels much more powerful. And on top of that, now you can send rockets back into the enemies with timed force push, highlighting differences even more with just introduced new enemy type. I am talking of course about troopers with rockets, not the ram. Nothing beats fucking ram. As Cal left the tomb, the storm stopped and the Empire found the Mantis, so Cal is in a hurry to get back to his crew. Path back lies through the Empire excavation site. Quite a nice map layout here, allowing you to move quickly between 3 different areas of the planet. However, to descend there, you need to go through one of those slide sequences, and those are hideous. I will save my breath for later when I will be talking about those. Anyways, when Cal gets back to Mantis, he finds it assaulted by ATST. It is a boss fight, but later ATST will be demoted to elite enemy, so don't expect much from it. It has 4 moves. It can shoot with laser cannons, you can deflect those. It can shoot rockets. It is best to save your force to reverse those. It deals massive damage to him. It throws grenades. You can try to throw back it into ATST with force as well, but in my experience your force is better saved for rockets. And when you come to hit his legs, it will drop 2 immobilization grenades, so you can't stay there forever. It is a gimmick fight, but I enjoyed it in the first time. One note, you better level up the skill that automatically blocks projectiles when you sprinting. It is really hard to get to his legs without this skill. Off to the Kashyyyk, and on the way we learn the story about Seer cut herself off from the Force and stopped being a Jedi, how she tried to lure Empire away from her Padawan, but then was captured and tortured and in the end gave up Padawan's location, and her Padawan didn't make it. And this Padawan is absolutely not a second sister because, what are the odds? Crew arrives at Kashyyyk in the middle of the Empire assault. Cal climbs on the enemy's AT-AT right during the action, gets rid of everyone on board, takes control of it, turns the tide. Wasn't it epic and enjoyable? So Guerrero tells Cal that Tarful is unavailable right now, but if we help to free some Wookiees, he may grant Cal an audience. So yeah, free some Wookiees and wait for Tarful's call. On this visit, player is introduced to some new enemies. There are slacks with poisonous vomit, nasty bastards. There are giant spiders. I mean, not that giant considering the size of the species recently found here in Australia. Jokes aside, terribly telegraphed, just avoided those as much as possible. Security droid, tough bastards, deal insane damage if they grab you, but mostly well telegraphed and fairly slow. Flame troopers, annoying dudes because they kinda block the visibility a lot. Fortunately, they die from single hit as regular troopers. And Purge Trooper with Electro stuff. Purge Troopers are elite units trained to hunt Jedi, and Electrist is the weapon designed specifically to oppose lightsabers. Those guys have plenty of posture, require 4 hits to 3 after damage upgrade. Those are fairly well telegraphed, but those should never be underestimated. Quite an enjoyable elite enemy. While we await Tarful's call, we circle back to Zeffo to try to find something new. And even though the Empire found us last time, we landed in the exact same location. Why? How does it work? Don't know. I guess devs didn't have resources to create an alternate landing site, so I'm gonna let it slide. And to get to a new area, we need to get through the excavation site, which means we need to go on the slide. Again. In this excavation site, players will meet dual-wielding Purge Troopers for the first time. I hate those dudes. They have super long, delayed combos. I can never remember those. I played the game twice, I still didn't figure out how to kill those properly in the fight where other enemies assaults you. I think with this enemy I want to talk a little bit about one of the huge problems I have with this game. Cal feels extremely slow and unresponsive. First of all, his non-cancelable animations are long, like really long. Second, if you hold the block, then release and tap it again, he will go through the entire animation of putting lightsaber away and raising it up. So basically it takes Cal twice longer to put block down and raise it again, comparing to just raising the block. And it leads to 2 big problems. First, you can't parry a sequence of attacks. That's why in this game, when you parry one attack in the sequence is broken. Fair enough. But then, if you miss the parry window of the first attack of the fast sequence, there is no chance for you to parry the next one. It is physically impossible. So if you miss first, you have to stay in the block and hope that your posture won't be broken. Second one, if you stay in block, you may not be able to parry even fairly slow attacks. Game denies you an opportunity to do so, and I know you can say, oh, it is game design, get good and all that stuff, but it is not only about being hard, it's also about making sense. Sekiro could do that, and he's an old dude without one of his arms, and Cal is a young and healthy motherfucking Jedi. And instead of the actual sword, he uses the bloody lightsaber that weighed nothing. Why the hell he can't do it? And I'm sorry for continuous comparisons with Sekiro. It's not because I'm Sekiro simp, I absolutely am. Developers of Fallen Order brought it on themselves, taking a lot of mechanics of Sekiro and trying to implement them in Fallen Order. Anyways, back to the story. As Cal goes to another tomb, he encounters a second sister. Again, another fight that was supposed to end in Cal barely running away. Textbook example of how to show character becoming stronger. As Cal is in safety and the energy barrier separates him and the Inquisitor, she takes her mask off and surprise surprise, it is Trilla, Seer's ex-Padawan. Who could predict? Don't get me wrong, I'm joking about it, it is predictable, but I don't mind it. I think taking known tropes common to franchise is not a bad thing if done properly, especially when we need a palate cleanser after sequels, you know. It also breaks trust with Seer and introduces some interesting character dynamics. On the way through the ruins, Cal finds the next clue. But, as Admiral Akbar would say, it's a trap. During the ambush, he ended up in the situation where he needs to use Force Pull to get his lightsaber. And this is going to be the last Force ability for this game. As a Force Push, Force Pull is a game changer. Now you can pull regular enemies towards you and kill them with one strike. You can do it from quite far, so if you are overwhelmed, you can create the distance, safely kill a couple of enemies, and get back to the fight. You also can pull smaller enemies with Force Pull and then throw them back into others, using Force Push. As you learn the skill in the tree, you will be able to yank larger enemies, staggering them and making them open for an attack. And since it is the last Force ability, let's chat about the skill tree, which is almost open by now. Skill tree has 3 main branches: Force, Survivor, and Combat. The Survivor branch is the least interesting one. Apart from the skill that blocks all projectiles while running, skills in it are either just scaling, like increasing the number of HP or increase the amount of health restored with Stim, or useless like the time slow on last second dodge. It is so short and insignificant that I couldn't find what I can do with it in 2 playthroughs. Combat, on the other hand, is pretty cool. It unlocks new moves, it has Saber Throw, there is skills that increase damage, which is obviously very important but is just a scaling, but most of the stuff there actually changes gameplay. But the most important one, in my opinion, is the Force. It allows existing Force abilities to shine through new applications and is essential for easy life during regular encounters. What I'm trying to say is the game is doing a pretty good job in increasing Cal's power, not through quantity, stat scaling, but through quality, new abilities, new applications. It is very, very welcome in any action game. Okay, back to the story. As Cal is on his way back to the Mantis, he gets captured by the guy who had his hold on Grease, because Grease owes him money because of gambling addiction. Why, Cal? How is it connected? I don't know. Anyways, Cal is used as the fighter in the pit for entertainment. As he defeats all the enemies, Mantis smashes through the wall and saves him. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure why we need this sequence at all. Remember in the beginning I said there's a moment where I dropped the difficulty? Well, this is the one. This is the moment. I personally think this fight in the pit is absolutely atrocious. The combat is not very well designed for facing multiple enemies, especially when there is no environment to use. And it is not helped by the fact that the majority of the enemies here are some insects with poorly telegraphed attacks. So the strategy in the end is running around the arena and picking up smaller groups. I don't know. Some people thought it was cool, but I don't like it. End of story. After escaping the pit, Cal gets the call from Walking Carpet and goes to Kashyyyk to reach Rendezvous Point. Tarful recommends searching the tree for answers, and ascension starts. As Cal climbs a giant tree, he learns to swim underwater, double jump, and befriend a giant bird. Cal learned that the location of the magic MacGuffin we were searching for is on Dathomir, and gets the lightsaber fixed so it can work as dual saber now. Seriously, this game definitely requires some improvements in the animation department. But the dual blade is doing what is said in the description. It is pretty good at crowd control, makes life much easier on the packs of weaker enemies. I have seen people using it on bosses as well, but I pretty much stayed with a single blade for bosses. Speaking of bosses, it is time to face the Ninth Sister, the first actual lightsaber duel player actually supposed to win. That is quite late in the game, I'm gonna say. Overall, bosses in Fallen Order are not very hard, and this one is not an exception, but it is a fairly balanced one. Ninth Sister has a combination of blockable and unblockable attacks. You will have an opportunity to stay aggressive on her during phase 1, parries are impactful, and you may break her posture once or twice in the course of the fight. In my clean playthrough, I didn't because of rare RNG, but on the other tries I usually did. Overall, decent boss fight, I definitely enjoyed it. As Cal defeats Stan's sister, Birdie gives him a lift, and we are out for Dathomir.
Setting course for Wait a minute. You want to go to Dathomir?
I'm surprised Cordova went there. He must have had good reason.
I am staying put on the Manus once we arrive. Red sunlight cannot be good for your skin.
So, if you don't know what Dathomir is, this is a planet where red dudes with horns like Darth Maul live. I personally don't know the details, but there were some wild shenanigans on the planet during Clone Wars. Need to catch up on that. Game tells us it's an evil planet, and well, it doesn't lie, at least from gameplay perspective. Enemies here are fucking terrible. Small roaches spit poison, living poisonous battle where they spit and where they die. As per usual, terrible telegraphing of attacks, and they usually gang up on you in groups. Giant guys who swing their arms in the air when you can't really tell when this dancing queen gonna hit you. And of course, battleload of HP. Fortunately, there's only one you have to fight. I personally skipped most of others. Resurrected Night Sisters, again with disastrous telegraphing. And dudes with maces, they are actually not that bad, but I included them to reiterate the random dude with a heavy metal mace swings faster than a Jedi with lightsaber. That's it. But by far the worst enemy here is this slide. Okay, it's time to talk about slides. I understand the idea and I understand how it could be fun, but unfortunately it is very poorly executed, and it is not fun at all. Direction changes are not responsive at all, and while you're sliding pretty fast, Cal changes direction with massive delay. Precision, I have been talking about it in the beginning, comes into play as well. You can't find controlled directions where Cal is sliding. When you change the angle, it changed by quite a margin. So you get to the edge, you tilt to the other side, skyrocket there, try to save it, but it's either too late or the game throws you way too far again. Cal's behavior near the edge is also weird. It feels like he actually slides away. Also, in some cases, Cal needs to jump, and he needs to jump far. But sometimes you just input jump as usual, and instead of doing his proper leap, he does the small one, and you are screwed. Some of the slides are not too bad. Some of them are much more annoying, like the one in Zeffo, where you need to stop the cogs and jump into the small gap. But by far the worst one is this one in Dathomir. I failed on it more times. I died on last boss, and I was doing last boss, no damage on Grandmaster difficulty. This slide is the hardest boss in the game. Confirmed? Let's move on. So Cal been dropped to the rock bottom of Dathomir and now needs to find his way back up. In the process, the player will fight Giant Bat, uncover the origin of Malachus, wonder Cal met before, and get climbing claws that will not only allow to climb on new type of surfaces, but will increase speed of climbing overall, making traversal much faster. When he finally gets back, he reaches the temple entrance but can't get in. He gets the vision of the past where his master is killed during Order 66. Now we know that Cal's misplaced guilt is what holds him back the most. Cal, hurry!
This power is beyond your control!
You both shall learn. When you face one Night Sister of Dathomir, you face us all!
During the vision, he loses it and accidentally breaks his lightsaber. It is time to get out of there. On the way to Zemantis, he encounters Malachus, who now reveals himself. He is a fallen Jedi corrupted by the Temple of Kujat. He wants Cal on his side, but then Night Sister Marin interrupts them and calls hundreds of dead Night Sisters. And in this chaos, Cal has nothing more to do than escape to Mantis. Okay, next section is Jedi Temple of Illum. Unfortunately, I have lost the footage from here, so I will try to be real quick in this section. It's a cold planet. Cal goes into the Jedi Temple to retrieve new Kyber Crystal. Now, Kyber Crystal chooses Jedi? What? Since when? I remember Jedi changing sabers without much trouble. It is not a magic wand from Harry Potter. Cal gets the crystal breaks, Cal loses hope, BD1 gives Cal's motivational speech, Cal combines crystal back using force, and how he can split his lightsaber into two. What? How does this work? Doesn't matter. Anyway, now Cal can split his lightsaber in two for special attacks. People were complaining for not being able to properly fight with two lightsabers, but their expectations are their problems. I don't know where they got those expectations from, but I'm fine with as it is. Anyways, now it's time to leave the planet, and of course the Empire is there. If you're wondering why, they're probably mining Kyber crystals for the Death Star, because if you didn't know, the Death Star is essentially an as-giant lightsaber. Players will be given pack of enemies to test new special moves. Okay, I hope I did it fast enough, and we are back to Dathomir to face Malachus, who blocks our way to the temple. Marin decided to help us along the way because she is pissed with him. What comes next is, in my opinion, the best boss fight in the game, highlighting all the things the game did right. This fight is fast-paced, thanks to the ability to engage Malachus. Malachus' moves are well telegraphed, so it's very rewarding to parry. Damage you will be dealing will be fairly split between broken posture and openings after unblockable, and you will block posture partially from you being aggressive and partially from your perfect parries. On top of that, he throws the rocks at you, and if you use force push with good timing, you can throw them back. It's a great fight, very fun, very well designed, brings up the best in the game.
Oh, you're a quick one. Come! Kill me if you dare! Too slow. Try that again. You like finesse. I've survived worse. Lucky hit! What is this?
It's like you said, Malikos. Dathomir will be your grave.
As Cal defeats Malicus, he finally gets access to Magic MacGuffin, and it's time to get back to Bogano to retrieve Holocron. Merrin decides to join him. Why? Dialogue was really weird. I'm not sure if this is a poorly written dialogue or it's actually smart and tries to show Merrin's lack of communication skill due to isolation. I don't know. I guess. At Bogano, before receiving the Holocron, Cal gets the vision of younglings hunted by the Empire, and has second thoughts on if it's actually a good idea to try to restore Jedi Order during those dark times. After he received the Holocron, Trilla shows up. How did she did it? If Bogano was concealed from the Empire? Well, the game doesn't bother to answer this question. Then they have another fight. Cal touches her lightsaber and gets shocked by a vision of the Trilla and Seer's torture. Trilla uses it to take the Holocron and escape. Now we need to follow her to the Fortress Inquisitorious to prevent the Empire from hunting those children.
Don't go. We need to stick together.
No. I'm going to lure them away, and then I'm going to circle back. Stay with the younglings, Trilla. May the Force be with you.
Master, don't leave us!
Trilla, what's going to happen?
It's okay. It's okay. No.
The planet is protected by the Empire fleet, and to get there, Merrin makes ship invisible? What? Is this a thing in Star Wars now? Anyways, Cal and Seer infiltrate the fortress and start stirring up a big mess. Here the player will have an ultimate challenge facing a large group of different enemies. Literally every Empire unit you have seen before. Stormtroopers, flame troopers, burst troopers, security droids. Gaps between meditation points will be bigger, and there will be no way to skip. Overall, I think it's a very fun sequence. It's not too hard, but it puts all the abilities you learn through the game into use. My only problem on the second playthrough was because I wasn't exploring, I found only one extra stim, so I had only 3, and this definitely made those very long stints harder than they should be. I would highly recommend to have at least a couple more. Then Cal gets to the interrogation chamber, the place where Seer was tortured and Trilla was converted, to have a final fence with the second sister. Unfortunately, I don't really like this fight. It is serviceable, but as fight with Malicus brought the best in the game combat design, this fight hides it as much as possible. By far the biggest problem is that you can throw the idea of breaking her posture out of the window. It is really hard. She doesn't give you a lot of openings when you can hit her in her blocks to drain the posture, and those openings are not very consistent. For example, when you were hitting Ninth Sister or Malicus, it interrupted their fast attacks and they went into a block. If they were doing slow attacks, they could continue, but then you would land a hit and still have enough time to evade. Trilla, on the other hand, may continue even a fast attack, and as we know, because of the slow block, you may be screwed. So you end up in lots of those awkward moments when you staying in block afraid to attack her. Add to it the fact that posture is not drained when you land hit on her, and she has more openings than opportunities to clash the swords. In all my tries, I never ever broke her posture. Then she may call ads. It sounds like every game dev studio has this guy who is like, yeah, let's add some ads. It's going to be fun. Yeah, and I'm looking at you, Toxic Berserker from Ragnarok. No, 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 ads are not fun in action games. In RPG games, sure, but not in action games, where combination of attacks can lead to unsavable situation, and so it is here. Depending on the offset of the phases between her and the droid, they can attack in such way so there will be no physically possible way to avoid it. Half of my failed runs were due to her calling the bloody droid. Please, guys, let me know in the comments if there is a single soul who watches this video who enjoy bosses summoning ads. Meanwhile, devs, please stop it. It's enough. In the end of the day, it all adds up to quite a dull fight with broken flow. I know I am not a very stylish player, but I watched some top tier guys and it doesn't look much better. Anyways, as we defeat her, she gives up Holocron and looks like everyone can live happily ever after. Then, the legend breaks into the body. Play Trilla, toss her away like she is nothing, and toy with Cal. I really like that they didn't make an actual fight with Vader, but just an escape sequence, because, come on, Cal faring well against Dark Lord himself is a ridiculous idea. Cere and Cal barely escape, Merrin saves them out of the water, and the crew stays around a holocron. Cal decides that he doesn't want to get kids in danger and destroys it. From one side it makes sense, from the other it is anticlimactic. Like we have been pursuing this thing the whole game to decide not to use it. But honestly, I don't know what would be a better ending, so decide for yourself what you think. And that's it, that's the game. What are my final thoughts on it? It's not a perfect game by any means, but despite all the flaws I mentioned, I enjoyed it a lot. Also, let's not forget that this game was the first take of Respawn on the action-adventure genre, and it was published by EA, one of the most cash-grabbing publishers in the industry. It is truly a miracle that we got the game that good and without transactions. You can say it was guided by the Force. The story is simple, but it works well, very in a Star Wars style. It features the journey and a decent character development, which was the foundation of the original trilogy. Fan service is plenty, lots of recognizable elements will please Star Wars fans' eyes. Gameplay is sorta okay. I think at its core it's good. Requires a bit of polish. What holds it back the most is the enemies. Fighting 10 different types of overgrown insects is not very fun. Some boss fighters needed better tuning, but there were highlights in the form of Malicus. Needed more bosses like this, and need more bosses overall. Game had like 3 unique proper duels. I hope we will get more next time. What can we expect from Survivor? Well, we have seen trailer animations are much improved, thank God. Guys who wanted dual-wielding stands got it. From what I've seen from trailer, there were less insect type of enemies in it. Hope it is the case. We also got the fast travel between meditation points. Not having it was actually kinda annoying. Unfortunately, meditation point and Souls-like approach to death remains the same. Not like I had any hope for a change in this department. Harry window still depends on difficulty. Well, there I had some hope, because I wanted to play the game for the first time on the master difficulty to make it a bit easier to clean up and get review out of the way faster, and then replay it on highest difficulty. But I won't be doing it because I don't want to grow accustomed to wrong parry reference points. But overall, looks very promising and I'm looking forward to playing the game. That's it for today. This is by far the biggest video I created so far. It took a lot of effort, it took a lot of heart, so if you're still watching, please like, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you very much and see you in the next one.